Medical Intuitive Insights with your host, Dr. Gloria Warren, is a program that presents topics on medical intuition, holistic opportunities outside of mainstream society, and scientific research as applied today. Topics range from online intuitive readings to interviews unveiling alternative healing modalities and discussing them with inspirational leaders. Dr. Warren is the bridge within holistic arts while stressing the balance between the spiritual and physical self. So now, please welcome the host of Medical Intuitive Insights, Dr. Gloria Warren.
Are there hidden patterns that shape your personality and life experiences? Why have civilizations across thousands of years looked to the heavens in search for meaning? And can understanding yourself lead to healthier decisions, stronger relationships, and a more fulfilling life? Today, we'll explore these questions together. Today's topic has a fascinating humanitarian view. Literally thousands of years will be discussed in this one show. So, astrology, human design, the cosmic blueprint with Scarlet. So hopefully we'll get a lot of enlightenment here today. I'm pretty sure we will. Some consider it an ancient science. Others view it as symbolic language. Today we're exploring one of the history's most enduring subjects. Astrology is one of the humanity's oldest systems of observation, originating thousands of years ago as civilizations tracked the movements of the sun, moon, planets, and stars to understand seasons, time, human behavior, and significant life events. Is this really how it happens? We'll soon find out. If you like this show, please press like and share. This helps for us to continue on with the show. Subscribe, please. Okay. Historical definition, because there's very many different definitions. Astrology is one of humanity's oldest systems of observation, originating thousands of years ago as civilizations tracked the movements of the planets and cosmos to understand seasons, times, human behavior, and significant life events. But there's a little twist on that. The psychological perspective. Astrology can be viewed as a symbolic language that uses archetypes and reoccurring patterns to encourage self-awareness, personal reflection, and emotional growth. Interesting. But then there's even a spiritual perspective. So in the spiritual light of things, many people view astrology as a symbolic map of life's energetic pattern, offering guidance for understanding one's strengths, challenges, relationships, and opportunities for personal and spiritual development. As for me and many practitioners, we view astrology as a framework for understanding personality, recognizing recurring life patterns, and fostering great self-awareness. While astrology is not considered as an evidence-based medical or scientific discipline, millions of people around the world use it as a tool for reflection, personal growth, and exploring the meaningful connection between themselves and a larger universe. By the way, a lot of these things that we're going to be talking about, there is quite a bit of scholarly research on it with positive notations, and I will be placing those references in the comments after the show has been put on for reviews. So before we begin, I want to remind our viewers out there, today's discussion is intended purely for educational purposes. While we'll discuss history, psychology, symbolism, scientific research related to human behavior and the pattern recognition, astrology and human designs are interpretive frameworks rather than established medical, psychological, or mental advice. Our goal today is simply to explore those ideas with curiosity and respect and an open mind. So today we have a magnificent person here. I can't wait to introduce you here, so I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to introduce you to Scarlet de Bonton, and she has been practicing astrology and human design. And well, let's just find out what she actually does. Scarlet, are you there?
Hi,
Hi.
Gloria. It's so good to see you. Thank you for having me on here. It's wonderful. I love stepping into my passion and sharing it with others. You said so many fabulous things, and I use astrology, human design, and a number of other modalities really to remind people of their own power already, that anything that they
Oh,
want to achieve in life, um, to help them eh, help themselves in essence, right? That through interpreting, say, their chart or a family member's or a moment in time, that they
mhm.
understand, oh, not just because a planet, many people listening might know Mercury is retrograde right now.
I
So
was
there are
just gonna
lots of
say that.
connotations. There are connotations that, come up and arise in certain self-fulfilling
Yeah.
prophecies of how people engage with the external world. And, I'm someone where, from my standpoint with astrology, having the background in Western astrology, Gnostic astrology, and even a psychological perspective and bringing in the spiritual, bringing it all back down to you or, whomever I'm speaking with, um,
Mhm.
to have them see just because a planet is in a certain position does not dictate what is going to happen in your life. You ultimately get to choose. So, for those who know what are the themes, they get to choose. They get to say, okay, so this is what I've been handed right now. How do I want this to play out? Is it always going to play out how they expect it to? Well, different modalities will say different things, but I
Mhm.
always say, it's really your belief and faith within yourself. I mean, there are a number of modalities that we could go into, but you said a lot of fascinating things, and I want to circle back to when it comes to the definition of astrology. Some see
Yes.
it as
That was gonna
some
be my
see it as a
question. Please.
Thank you. Some see it, it's like, oh, it's a fun kind of party trick and whatnot, and tell me my sun sign, and or they take it a little bit more seriously, where they do believe. I mean, I'm not here to tell people, oh, just because a planet is retrograde doesn't mean you're going to lose your keys, your emails aren't going to go through, or you won't receive them, something like that. Um, it could happen. Anything is possible. It's just a question of where is your focus, right? So they see it as a symbolic language, as I see it more as a mirror and a map. So as within,
Hmm.
as without, as without, as within. It's just the question, are you willing to look? Are you willing to pay attention to what you're noticing? And what I also firmly believe, and I think many people would agree with me, is we build our lives internally first, off of our intuition, our gut feelings,
Mhm.
the stories that we tell, that we hear, and our dreams. um Ultimately, people say, oh, astrology, and like, well, we follow marketing trends, we follow ideologies blindly as well,
Yeah.
and these things shift and evolve as we shift and evolve, which is something that people tend to forget, right? We're not going to be the same person. I mean, physically, yes, most probably, um but through the stimuli, through the people who we interact with, we're giving and receiving, rather, and there
Mhm.
are shifts that happen. We'll never meet the same version of ourselves twice.
Oh, that's great. So it
And
sounds to
so,
me like go ahead.
sorry, no, it's just I wanted to elaborate. So
Sure.
in terms of the mirror, seeing astrology and its archetypes and themes as a mirror, it's once you, I mean, I also like to tell people, everyone's an astrologer. I mean, with a world population of roughly 8 billion, I say we
Wow.
have roughly 8 billion. We have 8 billion astrologers, and we have 8 billion different realities encompassed in one earth. Like, how fascinating is that?
Yeah.
And then people are like, well, why do these archetypes and themes play out one way for me and play out another way for someone else? And this is more, don't mean to take up too much time on this particular
Okay.
aspect. It's from the psychological perspective, where what family environment were we born into? What social environment, what language do we speak? This is all mirrored within our realities. And in terms of astrology as a map, it's like, let's say that there's a forest and there are different paths that you could take. Astrology doesn't tell you which path to take. It just says there are many different paths and you get to choose ultimately.
That is wonderfully stated. So what I get out of your discussion, your points right now is astrology is very personal, person to
Yes.
person, pretty much. And you're not held by the stars. You can change, do things differently. It's not to say it won't affect you, but it doesn't need to rule you either, in a sense. At least we hope not all the time, especially
Exactly.
when Mercury's in retrograde. I
Right,
had a friend that
exactly.
I had a friend that actually, she really believed strongly in that. And I didn't really, this was many years ago, at least 20. And she wouldn't even fly when Mercury was in retrograde. And I guess a lot of her friends were the same way. And I'm like, well, what actually happens to you? And she started telling me these things. And then I realized when Mercury was in retrograde the next time, it was happening to people all over around me. And now, whether they were manifesting it because they knew Mercury was in retrograde,
Mm,
or perhaps it just, was actually inflicted on them, I'm not sure. But I like that you made that a point to say everyone is an astrologer. I
mm,
really, you really bring that home because everyone has the ability to seeing what is in the stars and how it affects themselves. And I guess it being such a personal situation and knowing that, that's basically a lot of what you do with the people that come to see you. You show
definitely.
them how they can apply this in their lives if they want, and then you
Mm,
explain and help them to realize that it's not set in gold. Nothing's set in gold. You know,
mm,
that's between you and God of sorts. So, but the environment of which you practice in cultures, especially, I noticed in
mm,
different cultures, everything is so different, especially in their beliefs of astrology. By the way, we will get into human design and everything else later on in these discussions. We're just going over this topic for this session, this portion. So, even though there's, rather than rigid predictions, um, it's more of just showing them the systems. And
mm,
you're right, it's the human portion of that equation that really makes sense, because that human portion of the equation it's basically saying that doesn't mean you need to abide by what you're being shown or told. You do have decision making process in place, and you can choose to fly or not fly, or maybe just do your work as usual and really focus on your work. And even if, some people say, oh, you shouldn't be working today, maybe that's up to you
mm.
though, because it's a personal decision. I really appreciate all that. I think I'm so glad
Exactly.
you said that. It's
Oh, you're
wonderful
welcome.
too.
It's one of those things where, your example with your friend and her friend group, on the one hand, one could argue it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but at the end of the day, the point that you made, it's her decision. That's the point that matters the most. Because
Hmm.
whether or not there's someone who says Mercury retrograde, whatever, you can fly. Your boss
Yeah,
asked you to do it, and it's call it your internal guidance system. And I actually hesitate saying that, but just so people can understand, it's not the driving factor. Astrology is not the driving factor here,
right,
because it's I'm multidimensional to a certain degree, where your emotions. So it's the moon rules, or
right.
doesn't rule, but is a theme of emotions. We'll get to that. I don't actually want to touch on it now, touch on it
Yeah.
later. But
No,
the point
actually,
is,
we do have to go ahead, make your point.
okay, no, I was just gonna say that the driving force is within. And so
I like
one
that.
person, one person can't make the decision for another. It's the same thing in medicine, right? We know our bodies the best ourselves.
Right.
And that's what we share with our
Okay,
practitioners.
we're going to have to take a commercial break here. When we return, we're going to pick up where we left off because there were a couple things that I wanted to discuss with you before the commercial break, but we'll pick up there and then continue. And we'll talk about why Scarlet refers to astrology sometimes as the mother of science in her bio, which is great. We'll also begin to explore human design. We'll be right back.
Mike Zorich, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorich, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorich has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to Medical Intuitive Insights. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Warren, and our guest today is Scarlet DeBonton, and she is an astrologer as well as human design expert, as well as other things, which we'll get into over time. So let's continue with our discussion. I noticed on your bio and things, and in our discussion on the phone, you mentioned that astrology is a mirror and a map. I thought that was just so beautiful. But I wanted to hear it from you. Can you explain what you meant by that?
So, what I meant in terms of a mirror, we'll start with the mirror aspect, is that all of the archetypes and themes of the astrological planets are already
Mhm.
within us. There's the saying, as without, so within, as within, so without. And so, what we experience in our external world is something that's already active within us. And as a human being, we're all astrologers, whether we consider astrology, I don't want to be like a thing or not. I mean, we are always speaking our charts, whether it's astrology, human design, any of those modalities. Who we are and how we express ourselves is simply already encoded in these archetypes and themes. The question is,
Mhm.
what lens do we want to use to interpret that? What whether it's we're talking about the mother of sciences, do we want to take a more intuitive approach, a more emotional approach? Do we want to take a more spiritual, soulful approach? Do we want to take a physical approach in terms of looking in the medicinal fields, of where when we're looking at medicine or the emotional, mental, psychological perspective? It's just so I like saying the mother of sciences, when we go back thousands of years, our ancestors looked to the skies. They didn't have our fancy telescopes. There are a number of planets that were ended up being discovered, more recently, but they had a stronger connection, which arguably people say, it's interesting with computers and technologies and smartphones that
Hey, it's not just
we're
me. Go ahead.
right. No, so that we're the most connected that we've ever been, but we're the most disconnected. We're disconnected from nature, we're disconnected from each other, we're
Mhm.
disconnected from ourselves. And I mean, everybody's going to have their own personal experience and opinions about that and feelings about that. Um, but the thing is, are these ancestors, they look to the sky, they recognize that the orbit, the movement of the moon would affect the water, would affect the tides. Um, and that ended up trickling down in the sense of, when I say trickling down, the knowledge was innate within. So they would pay
Oh,
attention, and they would pay attention to when they planted their crop, when they would harvest specific crops. They also had an intuition about, what was good for their bodies. And we know this from nomadic tribes, uh, no matter really where you were in the world, it's
hmm.
that if somebody in the tribe ended up being sick because of something that they ate, everybody would end up being sick. And that was something, where you say you evolve, you learn, you see a new plant, you experiment with it. Those were the tribe leaders, the medicine leaders of the communities, or the shamans even. And you look at the Babylonians and how the information, just kind of looking at what was the climate like back then. Why, when
Hmm.
we consider why people had to move geographically, that they were always going to come up with, or come in contact with, or be confronted with a new environment that they would have to adapt and evolve to. Um, and that's how, different crops, and from the
Oh, right.
agricultural perspective and the medicinal perspective, how that evolved with people paying, I mean, when I say people paying attention, that's more nowadays, where, are we checking our labels, or do we know what's in our food? Our
Hmm.
ancestors knew. They were on top of that.
I get that. I'm going to take one little step back and say, whereas mathematics, they use equations, chemistry
Mm.
uses elements, and astrology uses symbols. I mean, the only difference between astrology and astronomy is astronomy doesn't, they don't apply it as much to humans, but astronomy is actually the combination of those three things. And
Well,
so astrology is the foundation of astronomy and science. Actually, a lot of
mm,
sciences came out of the practice of, historically, came out of the practice of astrology, which I
mm.
think many people may not be truly aware of that. I think they just try
Well,
to cover those
when
things
you
up.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I didn't mean
No,
to. I
no,
said,
I do
well,
it all the time.
as when
Yeah.
when you interpret a chart,
Hmm.
you're looking, so it's at a circle, so you have 360 degrees. There's already mathematics embedded
Right.
within an interpretation, in terms of, you're looking at chemistry, like with the elements. Oh, I can't wait to talk about the zodiac and just how simple it is to
I know, in
memorize
time.
it in
Many
time.
things coming up. Stay with us
It's
here.
coming up. It's coming up. But I mean, the elements, that was drawn from, that was already a part of astrology. So the mathematics, the elements, and then
Right.
you kind of look at the mathematical perspective. It's looking how far are the planets from each other, which tells us what is the quote unquote dialogue between these planets, if we were to look at them as entities, or if you wanted to see them as two different people with two different backgrounds, what's the conversation that they're having? And that's where I create an interpretation out of that and share
Yeah.
that with others. Exactly.
Isn't that interesting? Astrology was like the foundation of astronomy, but now it's kind of evolved, and now astronomy is like the foundation of what you do. It's like,
Yes.
whoa, full circle here, round and around we go. And they're just so
Mm,
interconnected, and people don't understand that complete interconnection. It's just subcategorized. They keep them categorized. And I think that's
mm,
actually a faux pas with and how they came up with the term science, when in actuality, all of this is, it should be based on the science of science,
mm, right.
and then all these others are just merely legs sticking out, but they intermingle like the DNA of everything. And
Mm,
this is like the DNA that keeps spinning around. You're back to
exactly.
astrology, explaining with using astronomy as the basis and the foundation for the explanation of astrology based on the
Mm.
psychology and what's happening physiology to people. I don't know, it's
I mean,
crazy.
ideally, and I think it's also just because I mean, how we come to the information, or, hear about astrology, or you
Yes,
grew up reading a horoscope in a magazine,
that's
and
it.
you don't know who wrote it. And when I say, you know, everyone's an astrologer except you are, that's one of the things that my mentor had said at one point, meaning that yes, we're all astrologers, but how many are actually taking the time to learn?
Hmm.
And I'm not one to say one modality is better than the other. It's really depending on what resonates with someone. But I wanted to say is ideally is that, when you understand the building blocks of astrology, you can fuse it with psychology, right? Or astronomy,
Hmm.
and that there's a fusion, like you said, that you're spiraling together. It's a little sad and still interesting from my perspective that like, let's say the psychological perspectives, there are so many who give pushback, and they say, oh, no, 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 it's like that's just hawkswash. And where I mean, there are many a historical figure that many know of,
Hmm.
um, were astrologers. If you consider the fact that when you look at the monarchies in Europe, they all had advisors. Those advisors were astrologically
Yeah.
knowledgeable. So a lot of, you
Yeah.
look at historical events and people just assume, oh, they made this decision. It's like, no, there was a lot of thought that was actually put into it. And I mean, I love Carl Jung, for example, the Jungian psychology, and many people don't know of, a lot of his writings that was not published due to the fact you look at the environment of the time, you come out and you say you're an astrologer, and they're looking at like, oh, like you're cuckoo looking at the sky, thinking you're talking to something or that you understand something that nobody agrees with. Um, but then his languaging is just beautifully, I mean, it's beautiful. It's poetic astrology. And his languaging, is used within psychology. So for me, I often think I'm like, people will come at me and I'll be like, you're using astrology right now to negate the point that I'm
Almost like
making.
a prediction in their eyes or what it's coming
Yeah.
out to. And
Mm.
yeah, it's very interesting though. But if we were going to define Jungian psychology, it's a branch of analytical psychology developed for Swiss psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung. It
Mm.
explores conscious, unconscious, emphasizing universal archetypes, symbolic imagery, dreams, process of personal growth, individuality, yeah, and on and on and on. So it's
Sorry,
like
I'm gonna interrupt, but do you hear
go
that
ahead.
already? Like the dreams, that's Neptune. Like it's like
Yeah,
the
he's
thing
going
is,
off into other holistic avenues as well, and yep, it's all there. And
mm,
interesting though. I don't know if we'll be able to finish this, but as far as
yeah.
the zodiac elements and modes, if you want to just say a few statements, then we'll go to the next commercial break. Go ahead.
Oh, so when people are like, "What's your zodiac sign?" and they go into the description, "Oh, I'm a Pisces, I'm a Capricorn, I'm a
Yeah.
Leo,"
How many times have we
all
heard
of
that?
those. We've heard it so many times, and the languaging is planetary. It has nothing to do with the zodiac. The signs themselves are funnels of consciousness. So you have the mode, it's cardinal, it's fixed, it's mutable, meaning there are those that initiate, there are those that take the time, ponder, reflect, then there are the ones that exchange. This is not to say that, I mean, that's what you want to know with cardinal signs. You got Libra, Aries, Capricorn, I was gonna say water sign, Cancer, uh did I leave out Aries? No, I started with Aries. But so it's like that's a funnel right there. So from fire, and so the elements fire, water, earth, air, they all have specific symbolism that's in a funnel. And when the planet is in it, so when your sun sign is in it, it's like you're holding up the spotlight to it. It
Right,
doesn't mean this is who you are, this is how you're going to be forever. It just means if your sun is in this sign, this will be the core of what you will focus on, whether you're doing it explicitly,
right.
whether you're always expressing it. That's another thing we'll touch on
Hold
another
on to
day.
that thought. I'm getting little messages here. We do have to take that commercial break. When we come back, we'll finish with zodiac elements and modes. Then we're going to go on to archetypes, human design, medical astrology, Mercury in retrograde. I mean, who wouldn't want to hear about that? Stay right there. We'll be right back.
Master of words, powerful player, What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Welcome back to Medical Intuitive Insights. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Warren. We are here with Scarlet, and Scarlet is an astrologer, and she's a human design expert, and she does many other things, which we'll get into, if not this show, the next time. We were just talking about zodiac elements and modes. I mean, did you want to add anything to that, Scarlet?
So I did want to add just that people understand truly the zodiac signs are funnels of consciousness. It's you have a mode that will be cardinal, will be initiating. So if let's say your sun is in cardinal water is Cancer. So it means that you will be initiating emotion. So the field around you will deal with the emotional world of how you nurture, how others nurture. Whether, people will say it's like, okay, well, I get very emotional or I don't speak emotionally. All of those things, when you look at a chart, so our emotions, so the moon will be connected. Moon is the governor of Cancer, of cardinal water. You're always going to look at Mercury as well, because how we feel, there's going to be a way that we're going to express it. So we're going to look at Mercury. Pardon me.
That's
But
okay. I have a question just for our audience sake. When you say cardinal, what do you mean?
So cardinal is one of the modes. So it means that you're initiating. You're the engine that gets the ball rolling. You can think of,
Okay,
so
the
when
energy
you
that
want
gets
to
the
look,
ball rolling.
so you
Okay.
could envision, what I would suggest to viewers or listeners is, you just kind of ruminate on what it looks like to you in your own life to get things started. Is you could think of cardinal water, you look at a waterfall. You turn on the tap in the kitchen and the water is coming out. That's cardinal water. It's the flow. There's something that's getting started. If you have a bowl, so you turn on the tap and you have a bowl where you're collecting the water, or you look at a lake that's still, that's not moving. You'd think of fixed water. So there's a component of slow movement, because the water is technically still moving, but it doesn't look like it because it's going on
Calm
underneath.
movement. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then mutable, so more of a Piscean feel, where it's like you can think about, okay, where are waves? If you want to look at, let's say, what does cardinal earth, what does Capricorn look like when there's an initiating? Cardinal earth Capricornian energy is really about creation. It's about building. It's like you have the vision and you want to start creating. So you're the one, you're like, okay, I got the map. I'm going to get the stones to do the fire pit, and I'm going to get together all of the people that I need. I know what I have to do. You can think about it in the film industry, it's the producer. The producer is the one who's, or in the medical field, not just
Or
those
the
fields, but the
engineer.
director, the engineer. That's
Yeah.
Capricorn creating. Lots of
Taking the
people,
motion and moving, right.
exactly. Um, so I don't want to spend too much time. It's just
No, no.
recognizing. So I talked about cardinal. Started talking about
Thank
fixed
you.
energies. So, um, so you have energies where fixed energy will be slow. It's the person who comes in, who's looking around and seeing what's being done, what still needs to be done, what could be done differently. Those are energies that aren't necessarily going to be the go, 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 do, do, do. They're reflecting, they're observing what's going on. And this sounds very sun from what I'm talking about. And I just want to remind, those listening that it doesn't necessarily, I mean, you can have other planets in fixed signs. It doesn't have to be your sun sign. And with mutable energy, you're there, the person who's like, oh, let's do this. Um, you exchange with me. I see it this way, you see it that way. What can we do? How are we feeling? I mean,
Yeah.
earth energy, mutable would be that last one where it's really truly about the exchange. I'm
Mhm.
happy, I'll send it to you where it's just a very easy breakdown that you could share with those who are
Yeah,
interested
we
in
can
really.
post it on the comments. By the way, if you have any
Mhm.
questions for Scarlett, you can reach her through her website. Scarlett, can you give your web address, please?
Yeah, so can I type it in or?
No, just
No. Oh,
it's
so it's
yeah,
my
it's
my
not the
my
same.
website is Scarlet de Bontemps. It's Scarlett, D as in David, B as in boy, N as in North, T as in Thomas, IN.com.
It's
That's
it's
so
a wonderful
Scarlet.
website, by the way. I took a look at it last night. I was really pleased and everything. So let's move on to human design.
Mm.
I just want you to touch base briefly and define human design, and then what a human design specialist actually does for a client.
All right, so with human design, I do want to preface that much like in astrology, there are different components. There will be practitioners who will take, let's say, a more traditional route and say, this is what Uruhu, the founder of, I mean, the creator, he channeled, it's a channeled system. Um, there was and the 1978 star that was going through in Ibiza, I think within a couple of days, it just came out right through him. So that's one of those things that I do always preface. There are those who follow his word, and then there are those who have adapted it. But generally speaking, I mean, human design is created from 5 components. You have the Chinese I Ching, you have the Judaic Kabbalah, you have the Hindu chakra system, you have Western astrology, and then you have quantum physics. So you're also bringing in a more intuitive based perspective.
So
And
I
in
just
human,
pulled up a simple definition here, just so our audience knows. Human design is a self-awareness system that combines several ancient wisdom traditions to help people better understand their natural strengths, decision-making styles, and ways of interacting with the world. So it's a self-awareness system. So that's good to know. And
Mhm.
sorry to interrupt you. Go right ahead.
Not at all. I'm glad that I'm glad that you read that, because that way people have the general definition. It's just I'm so aware
Right.
of the different modalities and how it's changed. They brought in Vedic, so now there's human design where it's not solely Western astrology, but they use Vedic astrology, which is already very different in the sense you're
Mhm.
looking at Western astrology tracking. You have the seasons, whereas with Vedic astrology you have your the astrology is influenced by the movement of the zodiac. So it's like more of an astronomy perspective that's looked at. And but that's also for
It's
another
ancient,
talk.
ancient. I think that's actually
Ancient,
where
ancient.
astrology was born millenniums ago.
Right.
That's where the birth of all of the sciences came out of, I believe, was in India. It goes way back.
It does go way back. And so in terms of human design, so you have a system, you have like in astrology and like the other modalities, a chart that really helps you see yourself. And there are the human design, the five types that give you a certain energy map of how you interact with the world. You have an authority, so how you can allow the energetic flow, let's say, and what repels it really. And it's interesting. I think it looks that when you read it and you kind of look at it, it looks simple at first, but it ends up being very complex. And then people use it, I've found, in a way to justify it. The best way that I would put it, it's one of the best ways to ground yourself in who you already are without being like, it's like, well, today
Yeah,
I felt this way and in a different way. Yeah.
I've had experience with a very famous human design uh, expert, and she actually adds even further things that are. She went to Japan to be trained in specific areas, and I really was amazed on how it. She told me so much about my life, and I was like, "This, huh?
Mm.
Wow!" It was just amazing to me on how much information she had. Um, I see medical astrology. Why don't we save that for another show? Because I can do medical intuition and you can do medical astrology. Let's just briefly, because I know we're going to be coming to another commercial break. Mercury retrograde. I
All
think,
right. So
yeah.
we're
Explain
here.
how
I
that
love it.
works.
Okay, so really, truly, when a planet is in retrograde, people are saying it's
What do
like,
you mean
oh,
by
it's but
retrograde?
but that's what I wanted to say. Most
Yeah.
people assume it's like, oh, well, it's reversing direction. That's not, I mean, that may be how it looks like, but that's not really what's going on. It's slowing down. A retrograde is very much like you can look at the fixed signs of the zodiac. You're going to look at Leo, you're going to look at Scorpio, you're going to look at Taurus. Um, I'm missing
What's
one. I
happening
did
with
fire, water.
Mercury?
Oh, so Mercury in essence is the planet of communication, of connection, of community. So those are the top three of what we're looking at. And so specifically, people don't tend to look at the connection and community part. They just tend to look at the communication, where it's like, what's the downfall in communication? Well, that's Mercury. When it's retrograde, if you're being heady, if you're talking too much, if you're constantly interrupting people, I mean, those are things that can, I don't want to sound all like doomy and gloom, but it's like those are moments where during Mercury retrograde, um, people might end up experiencing some conflict or let's say some frustration. Right now, Mercury is retrograde in Cancer in cardinal water. So it's initiating, so it's very emotional. And I don't know if you've experienced lots of people around you where they're like, I just can't anymore. Themes, unhealed themes from the past are coming up. Um, it's
Hmm.
come up in a lot of the conversations. And you'll read it out there, and it's one of those things where I say it could be a self-fulfilling prophecy for some,
Right.
where the texts out there, I mean, you see it on social media, I have to chuckle. I mean, and again, so this isn't a judgment point, but people are talking about twin flames and
Hmm.
ex-lovers coming back from the past and people who you have unresolved business with, or whether it's familial or romantic or work related, it's all going to come back. So whatever is unfinished,
So,
that's a lot of the terminology out there right now. But
right,
truly,
right,
all that's going on is the emotions that are feeling. Whether or not any of those
right.
things happen doesn't really matter.
So when they say Mercury in retrograde, I'm just going to give them a short definition here. It's a
Mm.
phenomenon in which Mercury appears to be moving backwards. It's a just appears to be as seen from Earth. So, just letting you know, but we do have to take another commercial break. And when we come back, we'll be talking a little bit about free will versus destiny, practical applications. Stay right there. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
Welcome back to Medical Intuitive Insights. I am here with Scarlet, and she is an astrologer and human design specialist. And topic today, astrology and human design. Okay. We had many talks, and we just finished talking about Mercury in retrograde. If you'd like to see her again, please put a comment in underneath the video when you see it. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, because if we don't get the subscriptions, we have difficulty staying on the air. So anyways, let's now move. Anyways, Mercury in retrograde, I always thought it was not good, but it doesn't need to necessarily be not good. So what I'm understanding from you, Scarlet, is what you're saying. It just means that although it appears Mercury's going backwards, it isn't, but it may actually affect your psyche because you don't have that, what I'm thinking, physiologically speaking, is you don't have that constant gravitational force around you, always moving in the same. I mean, if the Earth stops spinning and rotating at its current pace, it's going to affect our bodies and our psychological situation. Well, when things are changed with the spin around the Earth, I'm sure it affects us, just like the moon. Just a thought.
Definitely. And
yeah.
Sorry, of course, it also depends what funnel of consciousness it's in, right? So a Mercury retrograde in Cancer is going to feel very different from a Mercury retrograde in Aries. There'll be different themes that are active.
And then the human design comes in, and the year you're born, Mercury was in a different place than maybe your neighbor next door when they were born that same year even. So maybe your body's affected in different ways. I mean, there is some scientific evidence about that. So let's talk, though, about free will versus
Can I say
destiny.
one more thing before? I mean, this is, I think, the nugget that lots of people might
Give us
find
that
fascinating.
nugget.
That nugget is, so when we are communicating, it doesn't matter who we're communicating with, we are speaking our Mercury and the zodiac sign. So the funnel of consciousness, I'm speaking, so my Mercury is in Aquarius, so I'm speaking Aquarian. I'm gathering your Mercury is probably in Capricorn. So even though I'm speaking Aquarian, you're taking in what I'm saying from a Capricorn perspective, potentially. Like, I don't know your chart, but I'm just saying it's what my gut feeling is.
But that's okay, though, because I was told once before that I have some Capricorn tendencies. Interesting. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
interesting. I mean,
yeah.
that was just kind of my feeling. I mean, also
Mhm.
you're the host, of the show, so I was kind of thinking, okay, creating. But so librarian in that sense. So we're both speaking air elements, so we want to connect. But in
Right,
any
right.
case, that's the thing. So for
Wait,
people
am
to
I
think
an
about.
airhead? Is that why I'm an
No,
airhead
that's
sometimes?
not that's
I'm
that's
just
not
joking.
what I meant. That's not what I meant. But
Yeah.
it's just, that's very helpful for people to think where it's like, if there's ever that moment of, do they understand what I said? It might
Mhm.
just very well be, quite literally lost in translation, even if we're speaking the same language.
Right.
Isn't that fascinating? Like,
No, that is, especially in the situation if we throw that information now onto the topic of you being an astrologer and human design expert.
hmm,
Sometimes we gotta. I'm trying to. That's what I'm here for, is to break some of it down so they understand what exactly you're talking about. And you've
hmm,
been wonderful. You've been breaking down a lot of that yourself. So free will versus destiny. Um, it
so
just
there
because it
are
says so
those.
doesn't mean it is.
And that's the thing, and that's where self-fulfilling prophecies and
Um,
belief really truly
Manifestation,
plays a part. The
perhaps.
manifestation plays a
Yeah.
part. Like, there are astrologers who will put their hand in the fire, and or that's like, will just say, because your chart, this was your birth moment, looks like this is what your life is going to be like, and so you need to know, the things, and what's, and they fall into more of a predictive astrology. And I'm not gonna sit here and be like, I'm negating that is something that happens to people. I just point out where it's like, that's their belief, their chart. If And I also have to say, I don't look at charts of people where I don't have their consent. So that's another thing, where there are lots of astrologers out there who they will look at a political figure or a public figure and say,
Right.
this is what's going on with them. And for me, that's not ethical. Like, I mean, each to their own, and I accept that there are those who do that. But in terms of the free will, that's more where I'm coming from when I look at
Free will.
astrology and its
We
archetypes and
love
themes.
free
It's like,
will.
right?
So,
And
Scarlett, do you have can you please let the audience know how they can get a hold of you again, your email address?
oh, right. Well, so the best way to get a hold of me, I mean, is through the website. It'll go to my email directly. But so if they want my email, it's Scarlet, Scarlett .debontin, DEBONTIN @gmail.com.
And your
Oh, and
website,
the
please.
website, the website, right? Sorry. It's scarlettdebontin.com. So ScarlettDebontin.com.
Thank you very much for being here, Scarlett. I do appreciate that. And I just want to thank you to our audience for watching us. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you. There, but for the grace of God, go I. May you follow the stars for all the blessings you can receive. See you next time.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This has been Medical Intuitive Insights with host Dr. Gloria Warren. Tune in each week as Gloria shares over 40 years of experience and yearns to provide knowledge derived from intuition and research. Wednesdays, 2 p.m. Eastern.